Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode on my channel. Um, hope you're doing well. Hope your day has been great. I just wanted to, you know, I'm feeling not a little. I'm feeling very grateful. So I figured I'll share, my testimony. I was listening to a sermon by Pastor Aaron, talking about how God blesses. That the title of the sermon was "The God Who Blesses," and he was just talking about how it isn't like the summary, right? A lot of people talk about how prosperity gospel is when when people come into, or when you how do I explain this better? When you explain to people, or rather the rationale for them to come into Christianity is for them to be prosperous. However, um, there are also people on the other extreme that they believe that God doesn't bless, which is obviously not the case, because me personally, I'm a living testimony, right? So I was just like, whilst listening to the sermon, I was just thinking about my life and how God has been truly, truly faithful from like the very beginning, from when I was born. My birth in itself, it's a miracle too. Maybe that's the story that I'll share some other time, right? Up until now, I have too many reasons I have too many reasons to be thankful, you know. Um, but I think I'll start from my time at SFU. I remember when I was still in school, there were periods where I didn't understand or know what was going on, if I'm being very honest. I started off as an engineering science student, and then I switched to doing computer science. And in all honesty, I wasn't the most serious student either, so the program was pretty difficult for me. But I just remember how there were periods of my degree that I never thought I was going to finish. And one of the most significant moments was when I was actually required to withdraw from school because my GPA was 0.8 at some point, and this was like my third semester my third semester in SFU. So it was pretty bad. It was at 0.8. And then what then happened was, the next semester I was still, so you can't you can't be in probation for 2 semesters in a row. And so the next semester, the courses that I failed before, I failed them again. So I was kicked out. And I remember how it felt, I just remember going to my father, and I sent him a message in the middle of the night at like 2 a.m. telling him that SFU had kicked me out of school, and I don't know what to do, kind of thing. I sent the message, turned off my phone, went to sleep, so that in case he doesn't respond immediately, at least let me give him some time to cool off or relax when he sees the message. And it was very interesting because this is why I say I'm grateful to God, because the response that I got was contrary to what I was expecting. I was expecting, in fact, in my mind, I was ready to go back to Nigeria. mentally I was prepared that okay, yeah, I've messed up. I might as well like bear the consequences. So I was ready to go back home. I was ready to start. I don't know if they will still agree to send me back to school, you know. But that was not the response I got. My dad was like, okay, so what are the options? What's next? What do you want to do? Like, what are the options? And then, I had spoken to an advisor at the time, and I had three options. I had the option to either stay back in SFU, go through a program called Back on Track. Second option was the second option was for me to transfer to a different school, then transfer back to SFU. So basically, we apply back to SFU, but when I get back to SFU, my GPA still remains, like my GPA doesn't transfer. And then the third option was to find a different school. And to be honest, at that time, I was quite comfortable at SFU, like most of my friends were here. And the thought of leaving just did not sit right with me. Yeah, I know I do not have any rights to be thinking like that considering the situation. But I mean, I was given options. So I told him that I would want to go through the Back on Track program, and so that was what I did. Well, I think that was probably one of the best things that happened to me as an undergraduate student, because there were so many things that I learned from the program, like time management, like how to ask for help. I think most of during my first couple years or first semesters at SFU, I never really asked for help, either from my classmates or from my instructors or TAs. I never actually did, if I'm being very honest with myself, so yeah, like I learned how to study, and just being sure of myself, because most of my time, those first couple of years, I really had this I don't know if I'll call it imposter syndrome, where like I do not really believe I was supposed to be there, because most of the stuff they taught, I just did not understand. I did not understand. I did not know what was going on. But well, long story short, that program was actually really good for me, because I learned how to go to school. I don't know how to make sense. I don't know if that makes sense, but I learned how to be a student, like how to be a university student, right? So so I did the program. The program was for a semester. Actually, it was for 2 semesters. The first semester, you're not allowed to take any credit courses. You just take classes in the program. I can't remember what they are called right now, but I did the program. So that first semester, oh my God. Now that I think about it, so I did that program during the summer. I did the program during the summer. Like the timing just happened to be that it was during the summer, and if I had done the program during like a fall semester or a spring semester, I would not have been eligible for a postgraduate work permit. So the timing, now that I think about it, was also orchestrated by God. I'm not saying my foolishness of not studying or of not being serious with my work was part of God's orchestrations. Who knows? I don't know. But the timing of that, now that I think about it, was actually orchestrated by God, because if I had done it in either semesters, I probably would not have been eligible for a postgraduate work permit. But anyways, I finished, and then I finished the summer semester, and then the next semester I took actual credit courses, just to boost my GPA. I couldn't take any computer science classes because there was a GPA requirement at that time, and my GPA was at like 0.8. Crazy stuff. But I was able to finish somehow. No, actually, sorry. That semester I did pretty well. I think I had I can't remember exactly my grades, but I was able to boost my GPA to like 2, I think 2 point something, which was coming from where I was. It was a huge. It was pretty big, So, but yeah, and then I just kept on like stacking, started taking courses, boosted my GPA up until I was able to take computer science courses again, and but one thing that was happening was that, like, since I was not taking computer science courses, I was losing time. My parents were spending extra money, and all of this time, like, there was no complaints. Like, God really blessed me with parents that actually care. Like, there was not one time where there was a rush, like, oh, Sukara, you have to finish school, what is going on? Like, there was no pressure on that side, and which is why this is also part of the testimony, like, I'm grateful for the parents I have. But anyways, I managed to finish what I was doing. I managed to do some computer science courses and stuff like that, and there was this particular course it was computer CMPT 295. It was a programming, it was a machine learning class, and to be honest, I just didn't understand. This is not out of me not trying or anything. It was just not for me. I did try. I did put in quite a lot of effort, and I remember when I failed that class. This was the first class I had failed since when I was really struggling earlier on. I just kind of tapped out, and I couldn't continue in my. I just said, you know what? I'm not doing this computer science again. And to be honest, at that time I was also thinking, like, even if I'd continued in the computer science, like, what was I going to do after school? Because my foundation was very weak. So, like, I didn't really understand what I was doing. I didn't really know what exactly was going on. So I wasn't really sure. I wanted to do so many things. I wanted to do cybersecurity. I wanted to do I don't even know. I can't remember at this point. But, like, to be honest, I never really enjoyed any of those things. So yeah, I finished with a bachelor's of general studies in applied science, and that was also what I believe was a blessing from God too, because what then happened was I was taking a lot of courses that I did not know I would need right now. Like, I took a lot of resource and environmental management courses, just because, like, they were courses that they were like these were like 300 level and 400 level courses that I could take without any requirements, right? Or, like, I probably had done a course that I had done a prerequisite of one of them or something like that. So I was taking those courses just so I can get enough credits to make up for 120 to graduate, But I managed to finish with a degree in general studies. And now, like, even I remember at the time I finished, I was happy. Obviously, I was done with school, but I was also like, bro, what am I going to do in my life? Like, what is up? Like, what exactly is the next step? But I managed to, this is also another testimony. The fact that me that was thinking that, okay, what am I going to do in my life? Immediately I finished school, I didn't have to wait. I think I waited for like a month after I graduated to get my first job. I got like a position as an electrician, without any experience, without anything. It was my friend Boma, he was on this channel. He was the one that I'd asked him, because I used to wash dishes, and there was a point where I was tired. I remember one of the Holy Communion services, because I worked on Friday nights. I couldn't attend, and I remember praying to God that, God, please, like, what is this? Like every time I always listen to it online. And I was like, I would like for the opportunity to be able to attend like Holy Communion in service, like the night vigil. So I prayed and I was like, God, please help me, you know. And then next day I just texted like Boma out of frustration that please guy, like, because he worked at, he used to work at a company that did like surveying. So he was working on the construction site. So I just asked him if he could get me a job as like somebody that does like rebar, you know. That was the plan, you know, just so I can do something different. But I think by the infinite mercies of God, he was directed to our electrician, like the electricians on site, and you know, they just asked me to send in my resume. The only ever experience I had in construction was, actually I had some experiences, but like it's just like 1 or 2 day gigs that I did on an app called Fiverr. And then also I worked 1 day in rebar when I was like 18, but somehow I got the position, you know. So I already got a full-time job like right after school, which was just incredible. It was, I can't explain, like it was amazing, you know. And it's leading. I ended up working as an electrician for 2 years, and whilst I was working, I remember. No, whilst I was working, no, I remember. Whilst I was working, I started to like chase a career in project management. So, you know, my friend and I, Dara, we wrote the PMP together. We were studying. Thank God for Dara, because he was the one that actually pushed me. I had registered for the exam, but I pushed it to sometime in July, like a long time. But you know, he pushed me, and like both of us, like after work, we go to the library and we study. You know, it's good to have good friends. But anyways, Aisha, we wrote the exam. I passed. We both passed, thank God. And I remember I was at work. I was pulling wire, and then I saw a text message on on our group chat. And in fact, actually, let me go back. So I started applying for jobs as a project manager or a project coordinator, and I was not even getting rejections. Like there was no response, nothing of that sort. And then one day on our group chat, like our work group chat at our work, our foreman just posted on the group that, is anyone interested in being a project coordinator or working in the office, that they are looking for people. I was like, Uncle I. You know, basically I was like, oh, I'm interested, like this is something that I would like to do. And I told him, and that day I got an email from the office that I should send in my resume, come for an interview like 2 days later, and I started working a week after. So it was like I did not even apply for the job. All the ones I was applying for, nothing. But the one that God wanted for me was the one, like it just came at the right time, right? So it's like so many things. Like I was just thinking about how I don't think I've ever felt like I was suffering in any of my situations. Like God has always been faithful. Like he has always like been very intentional. Like these are situations that I feel like if people were going through, they might have reacted a lot. I don't know, but I just feel like there was always this level of peace too, and that's the blessing that I think God has given me, right? And I'm truly grateful. Like so many things. Like I was also thinking that if I had graduated, because I spent an extra 2 years in school, if I had graduated like 2 years ago, like 2 years before I did, I don't know what would have happened, but I feel like I might have maybe been in Nigeria. Who knows? I don't know. But like I think everything is just like the more I think about it, everything has just been falling in place the way it should. God has genuinely been kind to me, and I just wanted to use this opportunity to tell him thank you, and also to testify and just encourage anybody that is going through one situation or the other. It might seem like the world is crumbling, nothing good is happening, but I just want you to trust that God has your back. Like God has your back. I think that's one of my favorite scriptures ever. That I know that the plans that God has for me are plans of good and not of evil, to give me an expected end. So it doesn't matter what the situation is. I'm just so confident in the fact that God is, as long as I'm in the will of God, that I'll have a good ending. Like I just trust him. I really do trust God. To be honest, I probably can trust him better, because there are some things that I do kind of act irrationally. But that's something I'm praying about and just asking him to trust him in all of these situations, right? So yeah, that's my testimony on how I was able to finish from SFU. It was a long 6, almost 7 years actually. In all of this, my parents did not complain. No pressure at all. In all of this, they were able to pay for my school fees. I didn't have to pay for my school fees. I remember there was a whole year where I didn't work. Like I did not work at all. And they paid for my rent. I still had to figure out my food, but see, God also blessed me with amazing friends, right? Like the people I lived with, I ate every day, every single day. I was not working. Every single day of the month, I was eating, like as somebody that was not working, So I really do love my friends as well too. So basically, I thank God for a good family. I thank God for a good group of friends, a good group of guys, and for my church as well. Thank God for Grace Chapel. There's so many resources that they provided for me as well, right? And I just can't wait to see where the future is going to lead me to. I think maybe when I come back to watch this video sometime later, I'll see. I don't know. I'm excited. I really am. What will 5 years from now look like? Who knows? But I know it's going to be good though. I think that's been a mindset that I've had without even realizing. Like, I don't know. But yeah, God is good. He's deserving of all the praise. There's a song that I heard today by Pastor Dolapo that says, I see your beauty, you are worthy, Lord. You are worthy, you are worthy, you are worthy, Lord. My response is, you are worthy, Lord. You are worthy, you are worthy, you are worthy, Lord. That's how I feel. Like I just know like he's worthy to receive all the glory, all the honor. I really do feel like that in my heart. I really do feel like that in my heart. From the depths of my heart, I know he's worthy. Anyways, that's my testimony. I pray that if you watched all the way up until this point, I pray that God blesses you. Remember, he's a God that blesses, not just with spiritual things, but also with physical things, with wealth, with lands, with finances, with relationships. The Bible says that if he dresses the lilies, how much more us? That's actually so interesting. If you are doubting, if you're doubting if He'll take care of you, just look around. Just look around. Just think back, reflect, and see where you are. Think about where you could have been. You know, I think it's always important to reflect. But yeah, anyways, thank you for watching, and remember, Jesus loves you. He really, really does care for you. He cares for you. If you think your life is hard, trust me, it can be harder without Jesus. Yeah. So yeah, have a wonderful rest of your day, and bye.